Hey guys, the psychologist here, Ashton. Welcome back to another video. I'm trying to make these a little more regular. They're pretty time consuming, to be honest, but I know you guys enjoy them, so I'm trying to make them a little more regular. And this was absolutely one that I had to make a video on. This was sent to me. I get a few batches of these. A collector sends them to me. And this one is pretty special. So here we have the Seiko Silverwave. It's the J12082 model. And this is actually Seiko's first dive watch. We have that inner rotating bezel there. And we pull out to set the time. We've got no date. And they're pretty cool watches. I'm a big fan. This one's got the purple dial. It's starting to go purple there, which was a common thing that happened to them. And this collector actually has written a book on these Seikos. And I can't remember the name of the book right now, but it will come to me. I'll give him a shout out and let you guys know what the book is. Now, what's particularly special about this watch, this might seem a bit of a silly feature to some, but it has the original caseback sticker. Look at that. That is the original blue caseback sticker on this thing. And that is a pretty cool feature. So we're going to get this open, look at some initial timing results, and go from there. So here we've got initial timing results, and it's running remarkably well. Look at that, amplitude's high, timing's good, but it's still going to be a good idea to service this because the lubrication's going to be dry. And who knows how long it's going to stay like that for. So we'll still get it stripped down and serviced, but we know that we're going to be working with a pretty good baseline. Probably not going to be a huge amount to do as far as parts changing goes. So it looks like it's never been serviced and in pretty good condition. So there's some great initial figures that we can work with. So we've got the watch uncased and dial and hands we can see here. We're going to whip those off now and put them safely. We can see just a really beautiful dial. I love how that purple comes through. It just it looks really cool, to be honest. It's funny what kind of faults in manufacturing people can admire. You know, you look at a lot of vintage Rolexes and stuff, and the problem dials, the ones that have manufacturing issues, seem to be the collectible ones. So yeah, very cool, and it's a very cool dial. So we're going to whip the dial and hands off and come back and see what we're working with. So one thing we could see from the watch is that it doesn't appear to have been worked on too many times. Everything is in really nice condition. We can see that. On the note about the oil, we can see here in our jewels that even though the watch is running pretty well, there's nothing on that automatic work. There's absolutely no lubrication there. So it'll run well. Amplitude seems to be good. Timing seems to be stable. But looking at numbers on a timing machine aren't really indicative of what a watch needs. They don't tell the full story. You'll notice too that when I take the watch apart, I don't take anything of the watch or the movement apart before I uncase. It's a really bad idea to uncase a watch like that or to take apart a watch like that. The reason is you can't check anything. You need to remove your dial and hands first before you start taking things off. You can take your automatic lock off, obviously, because that is a bit of a pain to have on there when you're removing the dial and hands. But one of the main things, it's really important, leave the balance on. Especially don't take the balance jewels out. It's a really bad idea to run a balance without the jewels in there. It can do damage to the pivots. They're very, very fragile pivots. So I would never take the jewels out while the watch is running. Also, the reason we like to keep it in when we do it this way, or keep it in before we uncase, is so we can check the flatness and concentricity of the hairspring. How do you know what kind of balance spring or hairspring you're working with if you whip the balance out? You can't tell. Especially, you can't tell until you've cleaned the watch, so you don't really know what you're working with. So when it comes to watchmaking, it's all about checking. Check, check, check again. You did something, you check it. You make sure everything's right. You change your end shake, you check it. You check it again when you're assembling. So that's why it's so important to leave everything as is, and do a few tests. So we're going to look at the balance spring to make sure it's flat and concentric. And because this watch hasn't been messed with, we're going to be good there. Looks like the watch has actually jumped out. Oh no, we're good. I just wanted to. So we'll put a bit of power on that mainspring just to check everything. So here we can see, we've got our balance pallet fork removed. We can check our barrel. And we can see that we're nice and tight. We've got no need to make any adjustments there. So we'll get our train apart and go from there. We can see here, again, we have no lubrication on our train. It's honestly like a perfectly preserved piece of history, this watch. It's pretty remarkable. It's like there was never even lubrication there. It's pretty cool. And if we have a look at our barrel, bushing, there's no brass in there whatsoever. It's perfectly, we can see all the plating on the inside, because what had happened is on the inside there of that hole in the plate, or that, well, not bushing, but you know what I mean, there'd be brass worn away. But it's so perfectly preserved, it's like the watch has hardly ever been run. So it's pretty cool. So we're not obviously need to make any adjustments or anything there. We can see our train wheel in place, so we'll slowly take our train wheels out. I don't think we're going to need to make any replacements or fix any pivots or anything like that. Have a quick look. They all look in pretty good condition. Really, it just needs cleaning and lubricating, which is pretty fantastic. So we'll get all this done, and then we'll open up a barrel and see what we've got there. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about, well, first I'll say that we're stripped down, movement stripped down, and we're good to go in the cleaner. So we've got the mainspring out of the barrel. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about, which came up on one of the forums recently, was mainspring distortion or twist. Now, if a mainspring doesn't sit flat perfectly on a bench, it's distorted. We can see that there, this mainspring is distorted. Here we're sitting off a little bit because it's that. So any kind of sitting off the bench is distortion. Now when you take a mainspring out of a barrel, it's probably going to get distorted. If you wind a mainspring in by hand into a barrel or into another ring, it's going to get distorted. It's the nature of physics, really. You can't really avoid it. One thing you can see is if plating is worn away on a barrel, or if there's grooves that are cut out, that's distortion of the mainspring that's causing that, and then that's going to affect amplitude. Now, a lot of the times, for the sake of economy, when it comes to these vintage Seikos, and the fact that mainsprings aren't available, we'll reuse the mainsprings even if there is slight distortion. Mainsprings also, Seikos also work on much sloppier tolerances than other watches. Adrian at VTA just mentioned a few things in a post I read recently about how sloppy Seiko tolerances are. It was a really interesting read, and it's true. It's something I've noticed as well, that you can get away with a lot more in a Seiko than you would be able to in a Swiss watch. So the fact that these mainsprings aren't really available anymore isn't a huge issue, because when there's only a small amount of distortion, we can reuse them. But don't fool yourself, there is going to be distortion. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all this in the cleaner. We don't have any jeweling to do, which is a good thing. So we're going to get all this in the cleaner, give it an ultrasonic clean, then give it a final clean, and we can get to assembling and lubrication. Okay, so we are back from the cleaner. I've assembled my cap jewels, the shock protection for the balance. That's already done. And I've also assembled the mainspring barrel at this stage as well. Interestingly, I actually ended up putting a new mainspring in. I decided that, I did some digging and some research actually, and I just found out that this is the same mainspring as an Omega 550. I haven't done a lot of the Silverwaves previously, so it's actually the exact same dimensions, 0.11, 105 high and 360 long. So it's the exact same dimensions of the Omega 550 mainspring. So I ended up putting a 550 mainspring in there. So we've got a brand new mainspring, which is perfectly concentric and not concentric, flat. So there's no issues there. So we've put our relevant parts through our EpiLam procedure, so we don't have any issues when it comes to oil creep or anything like that. And we're going to start assembly and lubrication. And I just picked up myself new ergonomic oiler. Very good. Very, very happy with these. And get some super fine precision lubrication going. So we're going to be implementing that as we go ahead. So we've checked all our end shapes and everything is good to go. So we shall get started. So we'll start by lubricating our center wheel. Pop that in place. Pop our barrel in place. And then we can go with our gear train. Relatively simple movements, these early divers. It's the caliber 603 was the first designation. That's what it was originally called, and then Seiko changed to a 4-digit caliber system, and it became this, I think it was the 6201, which shares a lot of parts with things like the 6206, the week daters, and those models. So parts are available for these, and it's great now that I know about the Omega 550 mainsprings, because we can put those in. Which is fantastic. So we'll pop our train bridge on. Good to go there. And then we can pop our barrel bridge on. Once we've put our train bridge in place. Now, while we've got the freedom to see, we can check our end shakes. Not minimal, but there. And we can get a bit bigger as we progressively go. However, we want our barrel end shake to be pretty minimal. That's a good end shake there. Happy with that. You know, end shakes are so important. They're really, really important because they can have a lot of effect. You can chase your tail and realize, like, what is happening here? Why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? And then you realize it's an end shake problem. Now, I don't actually think that that's the right screw. It could be, but I'm going to put it in and then we can change it later if we have to. You know what? I've put my pallet fork in, but I actually want to check the backlash in the gear train before we do that. So we'll fit our click. Ratchet wheel. Okay, so with our ratchet wheel screw on, we can check our gear train freedom. And it looks like we've got a nice free gear train. No issues there, which is good. So then we can now fit our pallet fork. Which we'll do there. And we'll put that in place. So we'll give it some power, give her a wind, lubricate the escapement, and we'll check our initial timing results and see what we have. Okay, so I've got the winding and setting work in place, and I've adjusted the cannon pinion. And now we can see we have our timing results. So again, like I said, the amplitude's jumped up. We're at about +5 seconds, +6 seconds. And when we change positions, we have a pretty good positional error too, which isn't too bad. Pretty happy with it for this watch. Beat error change slightly, but we're still within our tolerances of 0.8. So that's good. And then we've got a pretty good consistent line there too. So we've got a bit of a loss at that position, which is going to give us a pretty good overall gain loss. So pretty happy with that. So let's get the dial and hands on, and we'll get our case done. So here we have her ticking away, all done and cased up. So we've got the auto work on, which is good. We'll check winding. Winding's nice and free there, which is good. We can see that it's nice and free, even though we're fully wound. So it's winding well. Our ball bearings are good. Everything's good there, and we've got a nice timekeeping result too. So the only thing that we have to do now is fit our back gasket and put the case back on. So we're not going to guarantee the waterproofness of these things. There's a lot of places for water to get in, and obviously watches at this age, we don't take in the water. We try to avoid it. So 6105's different story. You've got big thick gaskets around the crystals and things like that, but this one, best to just leave them away from water. So we've got that case back sticker, which has stayed on, which is all important. And there she is. We have a beautiful J12082 Silverwave for your consideration. Well, not really. It's not for sale, but definitely a beautiful, beautiful watch. And very happy with how the service went, and very happy with the result. So thanks again for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, tell your friends about it. If they're Seiko fans, learn interesting tips, tricks, and things like that. So yeah, until next time, and thanks again, guys. Have a good one.